Today's panel is all about playing our part, creating ecosystems of effectiveness, and I'd kind of add connectedness into effectiveness, I think, on that. And it is about playing our part, and how do we actually go about, as marketers at the end of the day, to kind of make sense of the world we live in, and the marketing automation conversations, and the AI conversations, and all of the different silos we operate in, from data to analytics to content creation to operations and sales and finance and beyond. The list goes on. And I think things can tend to get unruly and complex. But I think for us to be successful, we need to look back and kind of try to simplify and optimize operation models and working models in order to collaborate more, in order to continue to kind of build interconnectedness. And how do we define success, and what does that look like? Well, I don't have all the answers, but I'm hoping our panel will have some of those answers and experiences. They're all from varied backgrounds, both wearing B2B and B2C hats. So can I welcome our esteemed panel up to the stage now? We've got Ankita Deb, growth marketing for EMEA at Aon. Yes, thank you very much. Swagat Chowdhury. We've got Global Director of Digital for Mars. Dion Pillay, Head of Marketing Operations for Legal and General. And last but not least, another Tony Allen, Chief Engagement and Growth Officer at IET. Welcome to the stage. Oh, I'll just sit in amongst you guys. Perfect. So we've got about 35 minutes just to have a really good conversation. Want it to just be informal, to kind of share our experiences, and hopefully have time for the audience to also ask questions and input. So the topic is really, again, what we were just talking about, creating ecosystems of effectiveness, and how do we kind of play together, really, and what works and what doesn't work. So I've got 5 questions I'm going to throw out to us as a collective. And just wanted to kind of start the conversations off there from your own experiences through your lens of whether it's B2C or B2B. So why don't we kick off with actually key players in our ecosystems today, and how do each of those roles differ potentially from the traditional way that we were looking at partnerships, et cetera. So if I can kick off with you,
sure,
that'd be great.
I was actually asking Tony that how do you define ecosystem? Because that's a very big word, and in dictionary you will see it means a lot of things. But I think there are 3 things, whichever way you look. You might look processes, you might look technology, or you might look people. But I think people sit in the heart of it. As per me, there are 3 people. One is who's doing it. They are really critical. For whom are they doing it is really, really critical. And the third, which we miss out in the excitement, is in your business, who are your sponsors, who support this initiative. So I think when you get all these 3 people to have a common outcome agreement, I think that's the core of ecosystem.
And common output agreement is interesting there. I would love other input from the panel.
Sure. So B2B, with a B2B perspective, I would say we have a really big buying committee. The buying committee is really massive. There are loads of people who are responsible to make the final commitment for converting a potential client to a client. So they are a very big part of the ecosystem. Another big, of course, chunk is the business. So as part of the marketing team of a B2B business, equal amount of participation of the sales guys and the marketing teams is there. And hence, of course, the marketing team, the marketing tech, the technology side, and of course, what Swagat mentioned about who's sponsoring it. So all of these elements sort of come together as the ecosystem, and that's where the real game begins, where you really have that constant conversation across all buying committees, across all the accounts, across all the teams working in tandem. And basically what we already do, we generally see these things in silos. We tie them together bring them in the same space is categorically what I think an ecosystem should be.
Yeah, I'll jump in. It's interesting to hear your views on that. I think the way I see it, and to your first question, Tony, you asked about what's changed. So I think if we go back traditionally, marketing was a silo. It was a single ecosystem, but silos within that ecosystem as well. What's changed is marketing is no longer this coloring in department. Marketing is a key part of the sales enablement journey. And that's sort of where we see us being more connected across the business. It's not just about the sales teams, it's broader. It's looking at it from a legal perspective, but first of all, from a strategy perspective, what's the strategy we're trying to deliver for the business? Then it's saying, who are the key players in that strategy? So from a legal perspective, from a compliance perspective, very importantly, but also, what are the salespeople trying to activate? How are we bringing in those leads for those individuals? So they also have a very key role in the decision-making process. Recognizing that marketing is the cog, it's the center wheel, but also we are supposed to be the specialist, right? So we should be the specialist advising and guiding the rest of that ecosystem. And really key to that is understanding where the role stops and starts. So what's your responsibility as a marketeer? What's your responsibility from a legal perspective, from a sales enablement perspective, your sales teams, and every other part that exists? Equally important is the technology that you're using. So when you're hiring these suppliers, make sure they're good partnerships because they're going to help evolve your marketing strategy. So really working closely with the external and the internal to deliver a seamless client experience, I think is really, really important.
Absolutely. Tony, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And I think just as you were saying, you've got to look internally as well as externally. So internally, you've got to get your board on side. You have to be able to have those CFO conversations, the CIO conversations, the sales conversations, the legal conversations. You need to be able to speak business language. And actually, we were just saying before we came up here, I was speaking to some universities about BAs and masters and what's missing for students, coming through in the marketers of tomorrow. And it is about, being able to have those business case conversations. I think unless you get that ecosystem and really buying into marketing being at the hub of those, you're not having the conversations where people get what you're trying to deliver for the business. And, we say marketing's the brains of the business, that's great, but actually does the CFO see that? Does the CIO see that? And they're all so crucial in creating not just the ecosystem internally, but what you then can deliver and what you get buy-in to deliver externally. And of course, externally, it's all about the customer. In my world, customer and member. And therefore, if I haven't got the CIO on board, then I don't have the best member experience or the best customer experience that I can get. So it's so crucial to get that right.
Absolutely, and I think that speaking the language of the boardroom is really crucial, and actually being equipped with numbers and opportunity in terms of what it's going to have for business impact is going to make that decision. I think a follow-on question, kind of going, building on that a little bit off pace, but I don't think it'll not too bad, is like you talk about the key stakeholders, multiple people, alignment. That's harder than it probably seems to be. And if marketing is leading this, how do you guys, in your own experience, rally the moving parts together under kind of a single strategy? Who wants to take that first?
I think pulling everybody together is one of the biggest challenges. And that's one of, I would say, 50% of the challenge is putting everything in order in one room. The challenges include the external, internal, and a mix of the two. The external is identifying what tech stacks are we using, what should be the part of the ecosystem overall. Internal are, of course, our stakeholders, the business side, the sales guys, the marketing, the COEs who are working in the marketing team. And the hybrid of the two is a very chicken and egg situation where when we're deciding to create an ecosystem, an investment needs to be made, but do we have enough customers? But if you don't have an ecosystem, where would you place your customers? So what would come first? Your customers should come first, or the ecosystem. So identifying and solving that issue solves most of the problems in building and setting up an ecosystem. That's the biggest challenge, I think. And yeah, so overall, I think the most important piece is identifying stakeholders who would be roadblocks, and also involving them, identifying where are people working in silos, which should be part of the ecosystem. And the ecosystem at the end of it shouldn't work in a silo, and there are 5 people working in the ecosystem, and the rest are still working in their own silos. So we've just created another silo.
Yeah, I can build on that. I think what's really important is understanding the business strategy. What are we all trying to achieve? And that's the best outcome for our customers, right? And the way you get buy-in is by making sure that whatever you're building serves its purpose for everybody. So I'll give you a good example. When we brought in a system, which is Seismic, is our central content repository, what we had to make sure was that every person that would use the system, use it in a way that helped them and solve their challenges. So that pushing content into Salesforce for salespeople. So it doesn't mean that your ecosystem needs to exist in an echo chamber. It means you can connect to their system as well. So if you want your salespeople to engage with your content, put it where they work, in their ecosystem. So it's a connected ecosystem using APIs and things like that, where you're pushing content to the right places for people to utilize that. But very importantly, when you're doing these things, you're bringing people on board, you're saying, here's the investment we're making, and here's the benefit statement for you as a team. If you can sell the benefit in a compelling way, you unlock the money from the finance team, and then you get the buy-in from the salespeople, your marketeers, and trust me, it's not easy. You know, Cassie will attest to this. We're 6 months into the program when we launched it failed. And it failed because we were very keen, I was very keen to get this moving, and left a whole lot of people behind. So it's important to take people on that journey with your any transformation journey, get that buy-in up front, make them advocates for what you're bringing in. So have people as part of the working group, showcase your vision, and take input to build a better solution for the business, and you get better buy-in as well.
Just to add to that, I think it's, you know, again, it has to come back to the customer. The customer is the leveler in any business, because, you know, who doesn't want to talk about the customer? And if they don't, then, you know, there's a problem there. But from a perspective of really understanding, putting the customer at the centre, and that can be internal customers, as you were saying, making sure that you've got, you know, like, I love, a friend of mine came up with an analogy about a CRM system failing, and it's like a high five where you both miss. You think you're going in for it and you miss, because, you know, there's always people that are going, I wanted it to do more for me and it's not going to do it. But you've got to be the voice of the customer, either the internal or the external customer, because that is your reason to believe why you're doing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think picking up where Tori left, yeah, means exactly the word CRM, CDP, you know, DAM, MRMs, you know, that for some people means a lot, but it needs to mean for everyone in the business. So the analogy I usually say is that, I don't know how many of you played the game Passing the Parcel. Yeah, that's what we usually do, right? I've done my job, I pass it on, and you go on, versus look at a marathon where you're passing the baton. All of a sudden the word means a lot different, because you exactly know when you have to reach to that person, for that person to succeed, and for all of you to have a common outcome. So I think that's where I think Dion touched upon earlier on outcomes. It is so important to all of us have that common outcome, everyone understands it, and yeah, we don't live on jargons like MRM, CRMs and stuff, but very clearly by implementing this is the outcome we'll get.
Absolutely. Outcomes, customer first, absolutely. And I think if we can share maybe some of our own experiences within building or on that road to success and collaboration and cohesiveness. What are the benefits that you've personally seen, I think, in bringing all of this together? Like, what was kind of some of the before and after success, just to give a little insight to the audience? Yeah,
it's I'm thinking which example to quote, or keep it generic. Maybe keep it generic will be better. But yeah, means especially sitting in a global role, we got multiple complexity. We spoke about internal stakeholders, you know, in sponsors itself, finance, your marketing, your compliance, everyone. But we forget, end of the day, if it has to be executed in market, it needs to be used. Someone needs to use it. So I think when we created multiple occasions, ecosystems, and having clarity, each one having the clarity that what's your role. Like if I'm sitting in global, I'm very clear to create a system that works for you. And at the same time, the market needs to be clear, because it's very exciting to create something new, or it's boring to pick up something that someone else in global has created for you. So I think it really benefits when you have a clear ecosystem, there are clear roles, and hence, we play our part in that and ensure that, we are doing what we are supposed to do, leave it, trust on the other person to pick it up from there and go.
Yeah.
Sure. Especially in the business that I am in, the solutions that we have are extremely expensive. And again, as I said, the buying committee is extremely large. Ensuring that when we have a logo or a client within our system, or we already have relations with the client, if the client is in the ecosystem and that built ecosystem is helping out, only then can we cross-sell the products that we have otherwise. And generally we do have a lot of products that could be cross-sold, but it just doesn't happen because one sales guy and one business is talking to one customer and one client and logo, and there are 100 other things that that client should have also known about, but is not in the know because he or she is not part of the ecosystem. Once we started building that, the customers themselves started, at least the awareness was there, and they started coming back to us saying that we already have this particular product, but I've heard of this. Could you please connect me to the right person? We already are a customer to you, but we need this kind of insurance. And I think that this should be helpful. So we started reaping benefits without actively marketing to them, because they were already part of that environment. They were hearing conversations and reading articles, participating in webinars that we were creating for that ecosystem as a whole. So the universe became Aon's universe, and that's how we started reaping benefits from the ecosystem that we built.
Yeah, I'll share the example I talked about a bit earlier, just to expand that. So I'm very tight with money. So when I hear you spending money, I'm like, why are you wasting money? And people laugh at me at work because I'm like, I treat it like it's my own money, right? Because that's why I'm hired, to be effective. I always say sweat your assets. So if you basically bring in technology, don't be looking for the next shiny thing. Use what you have first. So with the seismic portal, what I'm built and what we're building on is what I call the marketing ecosystem that then enables sales. And what we've cleverly done is sort of built in all the workflows within Seismic, so it has the connection directly to the compliance team to get that sign off. What we created centrally is a hub of pre-compliant material, so you're faster to market. You're enabling the sales team then to assemble decks very quickly, and then through automation, we're scaling that as well. So you've got the sales team working in a system, you've got your content creators creating the content, getting it complied and saved centrally. It's then we basically curate that content globally. So it's by client type, by market. So people selling in those regions can see only what's relevant to their market. So saving them lots of hassle and compliance. So the governance selling point was a massive thing for us. You're improving governance, you're faster to market, you also know what content is resonating, what's not resonating. Then we have what's coming in October as enablement planner. So you're the end-to-end briefing of your requirements to the marketing team, and then seeing across marketing where the bottlenecks are and sort of what campaigns are happening to ensure we are maximizing the benefit of our people, the time, and also the assets that we are creating. So that's sort of where we're sort of playing in the current space.
That's great.
Yeah, so I'm right deep in the middle of it at the moment. So we've just done the biggest transformation in March this year that the business has done in 18 years. And we've literally turned the business on its side. So gone from a very siloed mentality into a full ecosystem. How does the sales, marketing, the customer facing part of the organization work with product development and portfolio growth, and then how in turn does that work with operations? And we have to remember our roles as CMOs have changed expansively over the last few years. Data and insight should sit with us. customer experience should sit with us. Sales enablement sits with us. You know, the MarTech stack sits with us. So actually, the ecosystem's got so much more broad. And I think we've touched on it a few times today. That RACI in the business is so crucial. What is marketing's responsibility? What are we accountable for, or what are we responsible for? How can we make sure, even if we're, you know, not accountable for it, we're at the seat in the table, so that conversations that are happening about data and insight, or you know where that data is coming from, that it's the single point of truth in the business, and that actually we're responsible for making sure that people see that truth, not everybody running off and getting their own data and saying, you know, we've all been there where, you know, somebody comes back with, my data says something different to your data. Well, no, we've got to talk in the same language about data, because that's where it starts from, the key decisions. And that's enabling us to see a very different world for our customers. And it's enabling us to have different sales and marketing conversations, you know, selling to every room in the house, for example, the money we're leaving on the table. But also it's enabling us to then see sales and marketing as a unit to go together, as opposed to, you know, I'm saying something different to you. So it's crucial. There's mini ecosystems at play all the time, but it has to come back to what are you trying to achieve together, and who's ultimately accountable for that.
Just one quick thing to Tony. For one thing, I don't think marketing owns client experience on its own. I think it's all of
100%. Yeah,
I agree with the point. You have to have a seat at the table, absolutely, and that's really, really important. And I think, I mean, that's the only point. It's like, you know, because if we say we own these things, it then breaks away from what we call the ecosystem, right? So we need to be connected. And to the point you're about to make, it's about there are multiple ecosystems at play, but you piece the right ecosystems together when you're delivering a specific piece, and knowing how you bring those people in, again, giving them a seat at the table, because it's really important. Depending on what you're executing at that particular time, it's knowing who are the right people to be in that conversation, what technology you're using, and how you're executing to create that great client experience you talk about.
Absolutely. And I would say to that point, you know, when I talk about owning, I agree with you, not only owning. You know, you've got to have everybody own the customer experience, because you've got to get that throughput from what happens in market all the way to delivery. And it is that ultimate feedback loop. You know, and again, it's an ecosystem in itself, because if you're not experiencing a great experience at the front, you know, or you're delivering a great experience at the front, but you're not getting it out back, then there's a problem. So yeah, 100% you've got to do that. But I would say that marketing has to be the champion of that. And it all comes down to that voice of the customer.
Well, absolutely. This is great. Go.
On stage.
Really important, you know, interesting thing, because we get challenged, you know, when you said that we own that, because, you know, that's why we get challenged, because today you have to work with everyone, and probably they're not directly in your team. And that's where you get confused as well, is that often is like, is data science going to report to us? The other word used is dotted line. I don't know what it means. It doesn't leave it anywhere. So you have to have a very clear thing that, listen, you are working because you're an expert team.
Means collaboration.
And how can we together drive it? And I totally trust you to, if you say this is going to work as a data scientist, I'm going to believe and move ahead. And if I say that this is the system or these are strategy, you believe in it. So I think that's an open-ended question which needs to be answered.
100%.
It is, and I was just going to add, on multiple points. Alignment is key, and that collaboration alignment. And my own personal experience right now. I'm 3 weeks into a new role, coming in mid-flight in terms of a transformational ecosystem that probably has not been as collaborative as it could be, potentially be for the point that there hasn't been a CMO at the helm for a while to champion it. And so coming in and trying to help aid and potentially ask questions and unpick, but actually ultimately be the champion, because I can see it in multiple areas, and people wanting to own it and being protective about that ownership. You have to peel that back in terms of, it's not about a protection of ownership. It's what's best for the business, what's right for the consumer, how is it going to develop better business outcome, and drive better long-term value, ROI, those measures that matter to the boardroom. and really then bring it back to the table of, okay, like we're all one team. So it'll be interesting as we play this out, but learning from experience and just diving in with previous experience it is about alignment and collaboration and focus and leaving ego, I think, at the door.
It's back to that thing where you sometimes hear about, parking tanks on my lawn.
Yes.
It's like, well, actually, why is marketing getting involved in this? This is my domain, and actually, it comes back to what is your unified view, trying to get to the objective that we're trying to deliver together. And back to your point about the strategy, what are we doing and what's each other's roles in that, because we all go together, but where you get we've all experienced it, well, why are you here, why are you at the table, why have you parked a tank on my lawn, it's actually what are we trying to achieve together, and that really puts things into perspective when you can get that out.
Yeah, the partnership piece is really, really important. Traditionally, in our business area, in finance specifically, the relationship managers, it's my client, I own that relationship. Right? We've all heard that. It's my client, I own that relationship.
Yeah.
What they need to remember is that things have changed. They work for an organization, it's the organization's client, and we're there to help support them, enable them to do the jobs really well, to deliver the outcome the business needs, which is commercial. Marketing has become really, really commercial. The CMOs of tomorrow and today need to speak commercial language. They need to know the language, like you said, the finance language, to unlock those budgets, because marketing budget gets cut every time, every cycle.
The first thing.
Yeah, right? It's cut marketing budget. So we need to really have good leaders who understand the commercials, who can take that seat at the table and speak compellingly about what marketing is going to be delivering from a sales enablement perspective and drive revenue and growth for the business.
Yeah.
And also quickly, what you mentioned about single point of truth, absolutely. That's having the business and the marketing teams watch the same board together is that unified approach that works best. And secondly, just on the flip side, a lot of times in the B2B segment, we see marketing as a support function to the sales guys. So please make my pitch deck, make it pretty. We've really passed it. We've had really long conversations, deep, long conversations with the sales guys as partners, as equal seat at the table, and understand that we, as marketers, can influence leads, and you take it ahead. So that kind of an ecosystem is what works best, especially in the B2B space. That's what I've seen.
Yeah. Well, and also I would add, like, putting in a proof of concept before you kind of roll out is crucial. And I think that's one thing that we're in the 3 weeks in, we're actually their focus on is actually, let's ring fence a particular line of business or an area or a product, show how it's working. But crucially, and I was just on the call before this, looking at that proof of concept, and the measures of success were really vague, and so it was literally drilling in. It's like, we need to have clarity on what is this, what are the outcomes of this, what are we trying to do very specifically, what are the 4 elements of that proof of concept, what are they going to bring to the table, so when we go back to the business for additional money for potential rollout, because we know that's the end game, we have to then show to that business the value that it's actually brought, and making that clear and tangible is really important up front, which was, in my case, missing initially, that we need to kind of get back to.
And I would add to that, actually, that's where we sometimes make mistakes, because actually we are so concerned about, if we don't prove this, we're not going to be able to get the money for it. So we almost squirrel away and try and prove it ourselves without going to the business and saying, hey, look, this is what we want to test. This is what we want to prove. And actually, at the end of it, I will be coming to you for money. Okay, being very upfront about this. And if it doesn't, if it doesn't work, let's fail fast and let's learn from that. But let's not sort of squirrel away in our marketing world and go, we're going to do this, we're going to prove it, and we'll work really hard. And then at the end of it, people go, I don't see the value. Well, we haven't done that upfront discussion around, this is where we want the value to be, this is why we're doing it, this is what we want at the end of it, because that's the buy-in bit that sometimes we forget.
absolutely.
Agreed.
Yeah, great. I'm conscious we've got a few minutes left. I want to open it up to the audience too. So I think a lot of our questions blended into a seamless conversation that I think we can kind of carry on. But just to focus on, we've talked about effective ecosystems and the roles that they play now, and the variety of people that need to be involved, and the cruciality of the alignment of that. What benefits can a combined ecosystem provide to the business, and potentially pitfalls in terms of what we come up with, and being honest and open around those challenges to redirect. How do we balance participation and ownership with that success? And I think that's really crucial, because it is about participating and owning, and when to start and stop that whole process, and who leads. And then finally, how businesses enhance collaboration to drive success. And I think we've seen that there. So I think I'd love to, if there's any other additional comments here that you want to kind of get out on, or off your chest.
It's like a therapy session.
Yeah, it is. Budgets. Can we tell you, how did you get your budget approved? What did exactly? How did you do global and local? So you can go on and on. But open it up, please. Interact and questions from the audience. Don't be shy. Right there. We've got 3. We'll go here first. Perfect.
I was just going to ask about how. Oh, okay. Hello. Hi, I'm Mel. How important do you think shared objectives are when you're working cross-functionally? And have you got examples of where that's played a really key part in success, and then examples of where maybe a lack of those have been problematic?
Yeah, I mean, I can take that one to start. So, yeah, I think they're crucial. I joined an exec team that had obviously their own objectives set, never shared at all. Nobody knew what each other were focusing on, and it was almost like, I don't need to share my objectives with you. You know, they're my objectives, so why would you want to know? And we changed that about 3 years ago, and we actively have a discussion around the exec table. It doesn't matter who you know, what part you play. These are our objectives, and so we understand each other's objectives. We understand where they might clash, and we can have that conversation, or where they complement, or again where, you know, again it could be well, who owns that? But then we have a group shared objective. And that is about, for example, this year, because of the transformation, that shared objective is about being a learning organisation, being that sponge mindset, not the brick mindset, really understanding what our teams do for customer. It doesn't matter where you sit in the organisation, what is it that you do or have done to improve that customer experience. And I think that really changes because it unifies. And then, you know, the flip side of that is where objectives or indeed KPIs are driven, where people are maybe driving for a goal that nobody understands. And you know, you're constantly questioning, why is that team doing that? Well, it's because they've been set an objective, right? So they can make or break that collaboration and alignment. Of course, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's a good question that it's also important to define where it's not relevant. Like within our team, previous life, Diageo, you know, I was part of the marketing digital team, and a lot of our objectives were inclined, towards the same thing: a winning consumer. How do you reach out to consumer in the most efficient way, and before that, most effective way for the consumer, not for us. But there in that team, we had a poor gentleman who was looking after compliance, and his life was very different. And we used to keep pulling him back to our meetings, and he'll be sitting. And finally, I'm like, why are you so quiet in these meetings? He's like, this doesn't concern me. My job is to ensure that I have your ass, you know, when you guys screw it up. So of course I want to know about it, but I might not be really inclined. So I think there are places where you need to also see that, do they really always incline to same outcome or not?
Hi. Look, it's really interesting to hear about some of those internal challenges, how you drive projects forward. What about your external communications, and how are you measuring the effectiveness of that? Do you lean on your media owner partners, your agency, internal tools? How are you?
When you say external, are you saying consumer?
Marketing, yeah, consumer or B2B, how you're measuring the effectiveness of the
I,
marketing that
I
you're
think
doing.
that's the easier one because there are enough metrics, especially a lot of us, if you're living in a digital world, you have very clear metrics where you know how consumer has, and again, depends on your marketing objective. Let's take media. If it objective to achieve what you want is more penetration, you want to reach out to more people. Simple. If your objective is to sell more of those chocolates or alcohol or biscuits or whatever, then you need to ensure that you're measuring when it's converting in the right way. So that's still much easier to do so. But you're totally right. We need to ensure that we defined it right in the beginning. A lot of our campaigns, often like media campaigns, we'll go live on TV or social. But when you say what's the outcome, people figure it out after it's done. It happens very often. Yeah.
Measuring success of B2B is fairly easier than B2C because we see definite change and the difference in how customers are responding to new pieces of content because the awareness phase, repetition phase, and then we move into the demand hand raise phase. And we have a lot of tools, and that's how we measure it. The good thing is, now we've reached a space where we use the same singular tool. Again, single point of truth. That really helps because if our sales guys and our business and the marketing teams, they're all looking at the same set of numbers, we both together are trying to solve the problem or the issue. If we're not getting responses for a certain campaign, we're trying to figure out together why is this buying committee not responding to what we're trying to push out. So to answer your question, yeah, the tech stack really has helped and bring all the pieces together instead of a sales dashboard and a marketing dashboard and a Google Analytics dashboard and everybody working in their own homes. That's the best way out. The new tech stacks that have come together. Lots of tech stacks have also helped us pull smaller pieces of sources together under one dashboard. That also has helped quite a bit.
Can I ask a question? Are you asking from an agency perspective or a media?
Well, I don't think so. Just essentially how you're measuring the marketing you're doing and the impact it's having.
Yeah.
So there will be some immediate impact as well as some longer term.
Yeah,
It's hard to
100%,
measure,
yeah.
and then how you quantify that to deliver. Because marketing's role is often, as you say, you have to speak in commercial language, so it's not always easy to quantify that. So how are you going about that? I suppose filling the gap there might exist.
Yeah. No, I was only asking that because actually, from an agency perspective as well, it's crucial that, and anybody actually, you know, in your business or whether you're working with an agency, that you're trying to think about what those success measures are beforehand. Not because, you know, you're trying to prove them beforehand, but how do you know you're going to win? You know, if you haven't got that many leads, or you haven't got that engagement, or you haven't got that pipeline, or, you know, it's crucial. You've got to think about that before you're going in. And you're right, you know, you were saying it comes afterwards. And actually setting yourself up for what is this? Is this ROI or is this ROO? What are we trying to achieve here? You know, my role is both growth and engagement, and they're equally important. So some of the stuff we do is absolutely about engagement and how do we change perspective in society, for example, where, you know, you're learning about that through metrics, you know, whether it be the Ipsos Mori trust factor and where we get on that, or actually what are we changing in the mentality of society when they think about engineering for their children? How do you measure that versus actually, do I need 3 times, you know, the pipeline for sales, you know? So I think it's really about what you're trying to achieve in that campaign and thinking about the end in mind first.
Hi, last question, I think. Yeah. Would any of the panel like to share an example of an ecosystem they've either created or contributed to that they're most proud of because of its effectiveness?
Well, I can share the seismic one because it's really, really compelling. We have 88% adoption rate, right? So we have 88% of the business using the ecosystem that we've created. because it addresses a number of challenges. It's not just a central space for marketing to work, but it's creating assets that support the global business model. It's a place for compliance to work. It's enabling sales to be more effective in doing their jobs, saving 10,000 hours a year in production time. So it's also generating value from a governance perspective. So you're stopping the company from being non-compliant and the people being non-compliant, not having to worry about compliance, because everyone worries about selling and being compliant, right? So you're taking the burden away from your sellers and really empowering them to do their jobs really, really well, enabling your marketing teams to do their jobs equally well, and to take away some of the admin burden. So with the enablement planner that's coming later on this year, we're automating lots of the things like content tagging, which is normally very manual, very boring, very administrative heavy. So by putting in all these automations into the actual production side of things, we're going to save the marketing team lots more hours as well. So one connected ecosystem where marketing can really thrive, and then connecting it back to the sales team through things like Salesforce, for example, and surfacing information in the place that they work. I think it's really, really a compelling way of doing things.
So we have, yes, we've built the ecosystem, and but it's ever evolving. I wouldn't say because it has to be contemporary. One, B, marketing methods are changing every day. So I would say it's something which is constantly changing, and we're constantly trying to keep up and get it better. But yeah, the ecosystem that we've created was the biggest challenge was to bring marketing and sales together and be partners in it. That was the biggest challenge internally. And getting the buyers into the ecosystem was an easier way because the clients were closer to the sales guys. So once we knew the sales team and the business team were close to us and they were partners, they automatically brought in their experience and they brought the clients into the room. Then, of course, the supporting pieces were the tech stacks, where we had various sources pulled together under one dashboard, have that as a single point of truth. And that has helped us also give us a feedback loop on the quality of audience that we're really bringing in. What is the quality of content that we've created? Are we doing the right, are we using the right channels in our marketing activities? Are we bringing the right leads? So the entire feedback loop was shorter and more agile, making it more optimum, and hence, of course, saving a lot of time instead of let's do a quick call and figure out maybe we are not doing the right thing and maybe get 1 or 2 calls a year with the sales guys, completely shooting in the dark, burning a lot of money, and then being accountable for that burnt money. This was a space where we are ourselves looking at the numbers and identifying that, yes, this lead is converting, this lead is converting into this amount, and hence my ROI is standing at this point. We know this year our marketing is doing really well. That's how it's really helped. It's really fulfilling as well.
That's great. Really quickly, because I know we're conscious on time, we've got networking sessions to start. Is there one last success?
I'll try to keep it quick. Yeah, back to the media bit, as you mentioned, my last role. Big issue, like we used to spend £500 million in media, and we knew that just by looking at the media algorithms, ensuring you're fit for that, you can at least save 10%. That's a lot of money, right? So the reason has to be very clear. So that is really critical. Second, having the right systems and tools is the second part. And hence having the right tool, like we went for CreativeX, which was easy to use, everyone understood, that's easy. Then obviously the entire system, but the core thing of that was what we had a change management team. Acknowledging that people will not understand because you want. So you have to create a team who very clearly knows that it'll be redundant in 6 months. And having the heart to do that and working towards it. So that was really, really important. And by doing that in the business, we were optimizing one creative every 3 minutes with AI, not us. I had to use the word AI, so I used it.
You got it.
And of course, bringing significant savings out of that £500 million. I can't share how much.
Yeah. Thank you very much to the panel.
Thank you.